Welcome to the first live for 2026. I'm so excited to be here. And the first thing we're going to be talking about is a system that can help you with the disorganization that you have going on in Canva. So, Canva is just merely a tool. But one of the things I realize is that if you don't have a clear system, it is often tied to the fact that you don't have clear goals. Sounds right? Tell me if you agree with me. So I want you to comment and let me know if you agree with me. Not having a clear goal means it might mess up your system. All right. And one of the things that I'll be talking about is how you can create a system or things you can put in place that will help you significantly with just dealing with the disorganization that you have going on. So comment below and tell me something that you are currently frustrated with when it comes to Canva. What is something you are frustrated with when it comes to Canva? And I have my notes here because there's just so much I want to share and I have to have my notes here. So, do you know what you're building? That's my first question. So, whether you are a small business entrepreneur, a marketing professional, whoever you are, whoever you're using Canva, what do you know what you're building? For what purpose? Do you have a very clear goal? If you have a clear goal, there's a quite high possibility that you're going to design in more for systems, you're going to be creating more templates, and you're going to be organizing with more intention and repurposing and resizing and reusing because you don't have the time to always be creating from scratch. You don't have the time to always be searching for files. So we're going to go down into this session. So the first thing I would say is if you are disorganized or feel overwhelmed with creating in Canva, that means you don't have a system in place and your Canva is reflecting, or it's pretty much a mirror, right? It's pretty much a mirror of how you plan, how you prepare, and how you protect your time. If you can relate to, let me ask you this. If you can relate to opening Canva to create a weekly post or to create a presentation, and you're seeing folders, you're seeing designs, and you are searching, spending so much time to find out one design, that one creation that you created probably like a week or two ago, and you spent over 15 minutes trying to find it. If that sounds familiar, comment below and let me know because I have been there. And that was because I have had poor naming conventions. I don't have folders with clear names. It was a hot mess. And sometimes I have duplicated files. And because I have duplicated files, that means I'm wondering like which file is the correct file I should be using, right? I'm wondering which file is the correct file I should be using. So if your brand or if you don't have a system, here are three clear signs that you don't have a system. So the first one is starting your design from scratch every single time, redesigning the same post over 20 times and nothing feels consistent. So without structure, we'll talk about this before, it is chaos. If you don't have structure, it is chaos. And chaos is often tied to if you're going to be rushing, that means, yeah, you don't have something structured in place. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is, let me just say, your brand lives in your head. One of the reasons you feel disorganized is because your brand lives in your head. Does that sound familiar to you? Like you know your brand colors, or you say you know your brand colors, but at the same time, you don't have them saved in Canva. You're not using a brand kit. You're not using the brand hub. You have a team, and if someone should come in to find the design that you created you 2 weeks ago, they cannot find it. That's one. But two, the design that you created 2 weeks ago and the design you're creating this week looks totally different because you're using different colors, you're using different fonts. That's simply it. You cannot allow your brand to live in your mind or in your head because what will happen is that every time you're creating, you're second guessing, and that takes up a lot of time. And one of the things we're not about this year is wasting time. We want to be more efficient and more productive with how we're using our time, but also how we're utilizing Canva as a tool. So let's jump into a little bit, or so I'll share some of the signs that I have here as notes, that are clear signs that you need to build a brand kit. Every design looks different. I talked about that just now. You waste time second guessing because you're not sure what the brand colors are, you're not sure what your fonts are. And I want to give you a quick story. So I worked in a marketing team. And being on that marketing team, I remember being there and I'm like, okay, what is the brand font? What are the brand colors? And they'll be like, oh yeah, it's this color. And you're like, okay, what's the font? And I'm like, we're not so sure, but we always use this particular font. Only to turn out it was not the font that was for the brand, right? And it wasn't always the same shade pink or same shade blue or whichever that was being used. So, those are some lessons that I had to learn. And so when we started looking for like the brand guidelines and stuff, we had to get back everything under control. And so because you're using Canva, you want to have a brand kit to really help you get stuff in place. And here's another sign: your team members cannot match your style. So you have a whole different way of creating, and your team members have a whole different way of creating. Those things create chaos, right? And that ties back to not having a system. All right. So let's talk about the other point, which is your files don't match your workflow. And that is just pretty clear. When you say your files don't match your workflow, that simply means that you have a poor naming convention for your files. So if you have a poor naming convention for your files, then of course it's going to be harder for you to find the file that you really want. And here are some clear signs that you have a poor naming convention for your files: random dates, random names, no folders, or vague folder names such as social. So it's supposed to be social media, but you have social. It's supposed to be an Instagram folder with all your Instagram assets and stuff. You just have social media, very broad thing. Meanwhile, you're creating for multiple platforms. So those are some clear signs that a lot of chaos is happening in your world over there. All right. Another thing I want to share too is that there's a mismatch and you're constantly searching because you don't have a good naming convention. And that really causes a lot of problem if you are working with teams or if you want to bring persons on board. And I want to tell you about what you need to shift from and shift towards. All right. And the other thing I want to share is that you are using Canva like 2021. What do I mean by using Canva like 2021? So the truth is, Canva is no more just like a design tool. It's now the tool that I describe as a one-stop shop where you can create a design, to create presentations, to create videos, but it is also integrated with third-party tools that you can utilize. And that means it is helping you to be more productive and efficient. And if you didn't know, you can also like create your emails and create forms and websites in Canva. So if you are using Canva just merely as a design tool, that means you're using it like 2021 and now it's 2026, and you have to really just get with the flow of things. So here is how Canva is being used. It's being used as a brand management space, it's being used as a collaboration space, and it is also being used as a design platform. So those are the three things. But like I mentioned earlier, there are so many other ways Canva is being used. And with that, you want to treat it more than just a design tool. It's not like you just going in there to create a social media graphic and calling it a day. So which means you need to have a system. And what I mentioned earlier is that if you are building, you need to have clear goals. And without clear goals, that means quite possibly you don't have a good system in place. All right. So if you've been watching, let me know, what are you frustrated with when you're using Canva? What makes you feel overwhelmed? Comment below and let me know, because I'm going to talk about how you can fix the things you are frustrated with. And let's jump right into it. So here's how to fix it. And the first thing you want to do is to shift from creating to a creator system. What do I mean by that? You want to start thinking like a creator who has a system in place. So for instance, if you're a social media manager, chances are you're creating designs and you're creating posts from multiple brands, which means you need to have a folder. You need to have a folder for different clients. You need to have a folder for different campaigns. You need to have designs that is associated with each campaign and under one folder, so that when you're looking for client X, you can easily search client X and you find client X Instagram post from 2 weeks ago, and you can also easily find them so you can schedule that post, right? So start thinking more about the fact that you're building a repeatable brand asset. You're creating, or you're constantly creating, versus doing one-off creation. And if you want to learn more about creating in Canva, I have easy to follow tutorials. You can check the link in my description. I have a playlist. I have a lot of videos talking about how you can create a system around creating a designs, pretty much like creating brand templates and creating and using your brand kits and using the brand hub. And if you work with a team, or you're planning to bring on board a team, then of course that is something you can check out. So check the link in my description for that playlist. All right, let's talk about what you could shift to. The other thing you should shift to is a workflow versus how you work on Canva, or should I say work in Canva, right? And what do I mean by this? When you have a workflow, you are thinking more along of creating brand templates, you are creating folders, and when you're creating like that, then you have weekly content, launches, similar to what I said earlier, campaigns. You create systems for your naming your files. You have versions of your files. And if you work on a team, you have an approval ready approach, because you're always getting feedback, you're always getting approach. So you want to have those things in place. So shift from how you work on Canva to creating an actual workflow in Canva. Again, this comes back to what is the goal? What is the main purpose of you utilizing Canva? What is that purpose? And once you have that purpose in mind, then it is easier to create a workflow. Then I want to share with you guys something that I believe would be of great benefit to you. So I'm hosting a webinar which is coming up, where I'm talking about from chaos to clarity. And in that upcoming webinar, I'm teaching you how to build a working system for creating inside of Canva, so you don't have to create from scratch all the time, and how to create and transform Canva templates into your own. So the link is in the description, and you can learn more about this when you click that link. So it's a free webinar which will be hosted. The date is entailed. All the details is there for you to learn more. And this webinar is free, and I'm looking forward to sharing giving a deeper dive on how you can create a system that actually works for content creation in Canva. Also, check out my playlist. I did a video quite recently, probably like a month or two ago, where I was talking about how to create content in Canva using different features like Canva Sheets, as well as using the Visual Suite 2.0. So you can check out those videos to get an idea of some of the systems that I'm introducing to you. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. If you are watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. Ask me any questions that you may have. I'm looking forward to those questions. Ask me any questions and tell me what, Carey-Lee, I am really challenged with organizing myself or using Canva in a way that feels organized. Yeah, because I can help you with that. All right. And that means you need to sign up for the webinar, which is coming up soon. So click the link in the description. Now, let's shift to our next point. What you need to shift to is, one, you're shifting from doing everything alone to future proofing. Now, this is a very big one. And this is a big one because as solopreneurs, as small business owners, oftentimes you're doing so many things alone. So for instance, me, I do a lot of things on my own. From time to time, I will get support. And if I'm getting support, that means they cannot come into the chaos. I have to have folders. I have to have my files labeled properly. How are they going to find it? That means I have to have my brand kit set up. I have to have my brand controls in place. Like you can't change your fonts. You can't use these type of images. Those are the things you want, or that's the mindset you want to have when you're creating think about the approach of you scaling your business. And so even solo entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or creators, content creators, need consistency and also need systems. And that's something that you should bear in mind, because at some point you're going to want to outsource or scale your business, because I'm sure you're not building this business to stay small all the time, right? Right. So let me give you some real world scenarios. Let's talk about some real world scenarios here when we're talking about moving from a place of being disorganized to more organized when you're utilizing Canva. So the first one is for a small business owner. So if you have this mindset like, boy, I only post when I have the time, only post when I feel like, you end up feeling overwhelmed and being inconsistent. And I've had clients and I've trained teams and they have been like, hey, I mean, I love Canva, I utilize Canva, but I feel so overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. And oftentimes, if you don't have a system in place, you'll often feel like that. So, do you have a routine? How frequently are you going to post? What are the type of posts you create? On which platforms? And so, what you don't want to do is to always have that mindset that I create when I want. And so, with a system, right? When you create a system, you have content templates. So you have templates for social media, you have templates for probably presentations, if you're going to pitch your business, you have a weekly structure, like when you're going to go in and start creating. Do you have a set day where you're going to go in and create? And then you also have your content schedule, because that is something you can also do on Canva. There's a video on my channel, which is going to be linked in the description, that you can check out. And of course, you have your brand locked in, right? I keep on talking about having a brand kit and utilizing it, because these things help you to save a lot of time. So one of the things I do know for sure is that when you're disorganized, you waste a lot of time, you lose a lot of money at the same time too. So that is why this particular video is so important, and for me to give you like real world scenarios. All right, if you have any comments, let me see. All right, I see someone saying hello, Carey. Hi. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. I am excited to hear if you have any questions and how I can help you to, eliminate the overwhelm. All right. Scenario two. So the other scenario that we have here is that you are a social media manager or content creator. All right, which means you will spend less time guessing when you have a system in place. And with a system, you have brand kits, you have template libraries, and you have clear folders. What do I mean by you having a clear folder? Having a clear folder or having a clear system simply means you have things created and structured. Remember, once you're a social media manager or you're a content creator, that means like, listen, you producing content is like clockwork, which means you need to have folders clearly labeled for the platform, for the client, for the particular campaign, for a particular date and time. All right. So that is another example of when you have a system in place, you are better able to have brand kits, brand libraries, template libraries, sorry, and clear folders. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll be glad to answer them. All right. Here is another scenario. If you are a marketing professional with a system, you have brand templates, a version flow, and approval ready designs. What do I mean by this? Once you have a system in place, that means you will have an easy way for your team members to find what you're working on. And like I said earlier, I've worked in marketing and I know how it goes. So I worked specifically in digital marketing, social media, that kind of space, which meant I had to be constantly creating designs. When creating designs and person had to view, or my manager had to look at it, give it approval, I had to ensure that whatever I'm sharing is structured. And when it's time for me to publish or click launch, it was easy. I could easily find it. Nowadays, there have been so many changes in Canva. You can now make comments on your designs, you can collaborate on your designs, which even makes it more important for you to have some structure. If you want to share, like, how are you currently utilizing Canva? What are the systems you have in place? Do you even have any systems in place? And what makes you feel more disorganized? So if you can share that, just drop that in the comments. Let me know. All right. And if you're watching the replay, you can share that as well. if you want a starting point, right? If you want a starting point in terms of creating in Canva, this is a tool you have invested in. Maybe you have Canva Pro, maybe you have multiple team members, but of course, with all the upgrades happening in Canva, with all the things you can do, you can just check out my workbook, which is your go-to resource guide for creating in Canva. With this workbook, I share a lot of information on how you can easily create in Canva. Whether you are a beginner or a pro, you will get some easy ways to create in Canva. So this is one of the resources that I've created, and I take great pride, particularly in this resource. I invested a lot of time, and for persons who have, downloaded it, they've said, "Yeah, man, Carey-Lee, this is a good resource." Also, this is a resource that I give to my team members or persons who hire me for Canva training. So if at any point you want a resource that will help you to better navigate Canva, a step-by-step resource to work through Canva and to just be more confident with creating not just designs, but design using AI, design using creating a brand template or a brand kit. Everything is in this workbook, or should I say resource guide. All right, I am seeing some people on the chat. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you're watching the replay, you can just remember to check the link in the description, because I have an upcoming webinar, and that webinar is free, where I will be talking or taking you from a point of chaos to clarity, helping you to build a Canva system that actually works for content creation. And I want to just share a little bit about this webinar. If you really want to go deeper, this webinar is for you. It's not just a tutorial, it's not just about templates, but giving you a clear structure and system that can help you to work with more clarity and with confidence. All right. So this is pretty much everything in terms of how you can create in Canva. So let me just recap. If you have been feeling disorganized, you feel all over the place when you're creating in Canva, you open Canva, you're trying to find that file from 2 weeks ago, you cannot find it. Chances are you don't have a system. When you don't have a system, what happened? You don't have, quite possibly, you don't have a clear goal in mind, or you're not clear what you're building in Canva, which means you approach it from a standpoint, one design, one little thing, trying to figure it out, and you just, pankering around in Canva. But if you really want to have some structure, you need to have a system in place. And I've talked about that earlier. All right. So, like I mentioned earlier, I have a webinar that is coming up. I can't wait for you to be a part of that, because that is where I'm going to be going much deeper into this session. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye.